My guest today is Keith Hoffmann. He's a Democrat running for Attorney General in what's becoming a crowded field. He worked at the Attorney General's office, and now he is a full-time candidate. Good morning and welcome in.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me, Gene.
You left the AG, and you were telling me you were going down a list of things you did for Peter Nerone. He's your boss. He's backing you. And then you didn't go to private practice. You're a full-time campaigner now?
That's right. Okay. That's right. Full-time on the trail.
All right. Now, I just practically, how are you living on that?
How am I living?
You need a paycheck coming in.
You know, it's a full-time job to campaign, and I realized that quickly. My wife is working. She's a doctor. She works at Brown as a director of women's dermatology there, and she is supporting us now.
Okay. By the way, that's just like your old boss, right? Peter Nerone, his wife was also a successful physician. All right, let's get right to it. You're the endorsed candidate, at least by Peter. Mm-hmm. He was out there in the news conference. I saw that. Are you going to be an attorney general in the vein of Peter Nerone? Are you going to be him 2.0?
So I have tremendous respect for Peter, and his endorsement means so much to me personally, but also, you know, I think he's a person of integrity. I think he's a person of great independence. We're different people, obviously. I think that we agree on many of the big issues, and I think that he's led the office ably, and I think I'm very fortunate to have been able to learn from him during my time in the Attorney General's office.
Right. You know, he can be a little controversial, too, right? He had a famous feud going with Governor McKee, and he tweeted a lot at one point in his career. It's kind of backed off on that. And now, boy, he really has grabbed the baton to sue the president. I think as you and I speak on this Friday, there may be 40 lawsuits filed. Yeah, he's prevailed in some of them, not all of them. Are you going to continue that, sue the president at every turn?
Well, look, I think it's very important that we hold the federal government, including President Trump, accountable. When they break the law, it harms Rhode Islanders, and we have, out of the Attorney General's office, the ability to step in. So certainly under those circumstances, I would hold the federal government accountable and make sure that Rhode Islanders' rights and our budget is protected. Those lawsuits, Gene, by the way, have, just for our budget impact, more than $5 billion a year in budget impact just this year. So I don't think that we have an option. We have to go out there. We have to fight for our communities when the federal government's trying to harm them.
All right, so I'm going to expect, I don't know if it's going to be another 40, but whatever it is, if you see the need, you're going to team up with a bunch of other Democrat attorneys general, and you'll run right to federal district court where so far there's been a friendly judge there, Judge John Jack McConnell. Now, he's controversial in his own right. Some people say he's a little bit too much with the Democrats. He used to be the treasurer for the Democrat Party, donated about $700,000 to the Democrat Party over years. Do you have a problem with that? Do you see that as a fair system for Republicans?
So first of all, I think that, as Chief Justice Roberts said, you know, there are not Democratic and Republican judges. I think that when Judge McConnell, who I have profound respect for, took the oath, he calls balls and strikes, and he justly applies the law. And by the way, if I'm elected Attorney General, I will team up with any Attorney General, whether they are Republican or Democratic Attorney General, to hold the federal government accountable. And I'd look forward to collaborating with any office to make sure that the people of their states are protected.
All right, let's talk about Judge McConnell for just a little bit more. I mean, he's not on the ballot, but just yesterday, Vice President Vance said that ruling is ridiculous. Yesterday, Judge McConnell ordered the administration to reinstate SNAP money completely, fully by today. Vice President called that ridiculous, said this is a judge trying to run Congress, trying to run the administration. We're in a shutdown. Ruling is wrong. They appealed.
So I think that Judge McConnell's ruling is right on the law, and I'll tell you why. I think that we've had government shutdowns before. SNAP benefits have never been turned off under presidents of both parties. And what the federal government has done here is they've failed to use contingency funds that are for use in an emergency like this to fund SNAP benefits for Rhode Islanders. More than 100,000 Rhode Islanders at risk of going hungry as a result of that during this shutdown. I think that's cruel. I think it's inhumane. And I think it's unlawful, and I think that Judge McConnell issued the correct ruling there. Yeah,
that was the early ruling, right? Spend that contingency money, that would have funded it somewhat. But yesterday, kind of surprised people and said fully funded for November. That's the basis of an appeal now. It looks like the administration, which wasn't going to fight him, will fight him.
Well, so I think that the reason for the full funding is that the contingency fund, the federal government didn't feel that they were able to use that funding to sort the money out across the states.
Yeah.
And so the ruling said, look, if you can't do that, there's another fund that's available. You didn't have to use that money if you could figure out how to fund partially SNAP benefits. But if you can't figure out how to partially fund it with just the money that's available, well, you've got to fully fund it using the money that's available to do that. I think that's the correct ruling as well.
And that appears to have spurred the administration, which wasn't going to fight him or wasn't going to appeal. Now they are appealing. So we'll see where this goes. It's on a Friday. All right, let's talk about other things that you're going to be in charge of. Crime fighting.
Yes.
Would you call yourself a progressive?
Look, I think that Rhode Islanders care about results, particularly out of the Attorney General's office, a lot more than labels. I think that we have to keep our communities safe. I think that we have to make sure that the criminal division of the office, which is an incredibly important function of the Attorney General's office, more than 14,000 felonies prosecuted a year out of the criminal division. We have to make sure it's resourced and it's fighting effectively crime in our communities.
But would you call yourself a progressive?
I would call myself a person who I'm a Democrat.
Right.
I think we can talk about the issues, right? I believe that.
Well, just give me a yes or no answer. I mean, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
So look, a progressive. By the way, so is Jason Knight, and the others coming in maybe more progressive than you.
Yeah. Look, I think that I'm certainly progressive on a lot of issues,
Okay.
and I think that. Well, let me tell you about some of them because I think this is important. I think that Rhode Islanders have a right to reproductive health care, and I would fight for that, and I have out of the Attorney General's office. I think that Rhode Islanders have a right to access health care more broadly. I've fought for that when I was in the Attorney General's office. I'll continue to fight for it as Attorney General. I think that Rhode Islanders have a right to safe housing, right? Not having their children lead poisoned. I fought for that out of the Attorney General's office. I'll continue to fight for it when I'm elected Attorney General. But I think that the Attorney General's office, why I think it's such an important office, and I have great respect for the people who work there and the people who've led it. You know, we are an office that is expected to hold everybody accountable, including those who are in power. And I think that these sorts of labels, yes, I'm running as a Democrat, of course, but the labels I think are less important to Rhode Islanders than the policies that impact them every day.
Are you strong on gun control? Do you support the assault weapons ban, the legislation we just passed? Are you good with all of that?
Sure. So the assault weapons bill that just passed, I would absolutely be prepared to defend it if it's challenged. And you know, I think that bill was a step in the right direction in gun safety in Rhode Island.
Now, that was Jason Knight's bill. He's your opponent. And everything you just listed, all of your opponents are going to come in with the same list. Oh, I'm strong on women's reproductive rights. I'm strong here. I'm strong on gun control. What distinguishes you from them in what has become sort of a progressive field? How are you different?
So, you know, I'm not even sure that we know who's fully running, and I certainly don't know the stances of all the other candidates in the race.
Well, we have three announced, you, Knight, and the woman who used to run the Cannabis Control Commission, right?
Yes, Kim. So look, I know all of these candidates. It's Rhode Island, so I think we've all worked together for years, and I have respect for all those who've announced. Again, I think that I'm just not familiar enough with what their stances are on all these different issues to say how exactly I'm different, but I can tell you what I stand for and the experience that I bring to the table, which is for years I've been fighting to protect Rhode Islanders from the Attorney General's office, and I want to continue to fight for them as the next Attorney General of the state.
All right, let's talk about crime. You were going to a list of things you've done for Pete and the Roanoke. Okay, just give me the quick list.
Sure.
I mean, we got to be out in about 5 minutes, so just give me the quick list. Go
Sure.
ahead.
So I came into the Attorney General's office under Peter Kilmartin, and I remained under Attorney General Nutter, and I helped to build our Public Protection Bureau that does all of our healthcare and civil rights, and consumer protection, and environmental protection work. I became the civil rights chief. I handled and helped to actually lead our hate crimes and police accountability work for a number of years, and reviewed and worked on a number of cases there. I then became chief of policy to the Attorney General and his senior counsel, which is the last position that I held in the office. And there,
you were his lawyer, so to speak.
So yeah. So what I did in that job, and I love that job very much, and all the jobs that I had in the office, was about 20%, it was overseeing the legislative agenda, and we had a wonderful legislative counsel and a policy analyst. And then maybe 80%, the major cases that were coming through the office, whether they were related to the Trump administration or criminal cases like 610 or public corruption. And that was the last job I held before I left.
How much hands-on fighting crime? Traditional prosecutor, I got a robber, I got a guy, I want to send him to the ACI. How much of that?
I did that work, and I prosecuted some criminal cases, but I think that isn't really my best qualification for this job. I think that leading the office, understanding how to resource the work of the office is really significant. I fought for more resources for our special victims unit so that we'd have sufficient prosecutors to do that incredibly important work. I fought for more victim advocates for our office so that victims' rights could be protected. I think that's the work of the Attorney General, and I would be best able to perform that function if I'm elected.
All right, you would be, by title, the state's chief law enforcement officer,
Yep.
is their Attorney General. Let's talk about ICE. You and I taping on a Friday. Just last night, Providence City Council passed a measure to basically keep their police department as far away from ICE as can be. Your thoughts on local police cooperating with ICE and your cooperation with ICE?
So I think that with ICE, we have to separate the two functions of ICE. There's the criminal immigration enforcement function, and there's the civil immigration enforcement function. Providence, state police, municipalities around the state and around the country do cooperate with ICE in criminal enforcement. Civil immigration enforcement is a different thing. We know that the Trump administration has kind of wants to create this mass deportation army and round up and deport people who are living in this country and who are undocumented. That work, the municipalities around the state are not required to participate in. And really, I think that the decision that the city of Providence made and many other municipalities around the state, I think actually all municipalities around the state have made, is we want our law enforcement resources to go toward fighting crime. I support that. I think that we have scarce law enforcement resources in Rhode Island. We have scarce law enforcement resources at the federal level, too. I want those resources to be used to go after the bad guys, and frankly, assisting ICE with civil immigration enforcement, I don't think is the best use of our state and local law enforcement resources.
Just about 30 seconds left. Sure. Let's talk a little bit about the hospitals. We've got two more in the news, back in the news. They maybe flip to another company. Your thoughts on that? Because you would be the regulator. You have to prove it all. It's
incredibly important work that we do in healthcare in Rhode Island. I think that those hospitals cannot close. I think that Roger Williams and Fatima are incredibly important hospitals in our communities, serving tens of thousands of patients in Rhode Island. I'm hopeful that we can get a deal closed before the end of the year.
All right. Keith Hoffmann, you're born and raised in Rhode Island, Portsmouth.
That's right.
Where are you living now?
Living in Providence.
Living in Providence. Young family, 2 little kids.
Yep.
And you're a Democrat running for Attorney General. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me on, Gene.
Good luck.
Thank you.